cooking of some of them." I remarked that if so, the lightning had discriminated very well in this instance. Meanwhile Goroko was examining the bodies one by one and presently called out, "These doomed ones died not by lightning but by witchcraft. There is not a burn upon one of them, nor are their garments scorched." I went to look and found that it was perfectly true. To all outward appearance the 11 were quite unmarked and unharmed. Except for their frightened air, they might have died a natural death in their sleep. "Does lightning always scorch?" I asked Goroko. "Always, Macumazahn," he answered. "That is, if he who has been struck is killed as these are and not only stunned. Moreover, most of yonder dead wear knives which should have melted or shattered with the sheaths burnt off them. Yet those knives are as though they had just left the smith's hammer and the whetstone," and he drew some of them to show me. Again it was quite true, and here I may remark that my experience tallied with that of Goroko, since I have never seen anyone killed by lightning on whom or on whose clothing there was not some trace of its passage.
"Oh," said Umslopogaas, "this is witchcraft, not heaven wrath. The place is enchanted. Let us get away, lest we be smitten also who have not earned doom like those traitors."
"No need to fear," said Hans, "since with us is the great medicine of Zikali, which can tie up the lightning as an old woman does a bundle of sticks." Still I observed that for all his confidence, Hans himself was the first to depart and with considerable speed. So we went back to our camp without more conversation, since the Zulus were scared, and I confess that myself I could not understand the matter, though no doubt it admitted of some quite simple explanation. However that might be, this Kôr was a queer place with its legends, its sullen Amahagger and its mysterious queen, to whom at times, in spite of my inner conviction to the contrary, I was still inclined to attribute powers beyond those that are common even among very beautiful and able women. This reflection reminded me that she had promised us a further exhibition of those powers, and within an hour or two. Remembering this, I began to regret that I had ever asked for any such manifestations, for who knew what these might or might not involve? So much did I regret it that I determined, unless Ayesha sent for us, as she had said she would do, I would conveniently forget the appointment. Luckily Umslopogaas seemed to be of the same way of thinking. At any rate he went off to eat his evening meal without alluding to it at all. So I made up my mind that I would not bring the matter to his notice, and having ascertained that Inez was still asleep, I followed his example and dined myself, though without any particular appetite. As I finished, the sun was setting in a perfectly clear sky, so as there was no sign of any messenger, I thought that I would go to bed early, leaving orders that I was not to be disturbed. But on this point my luck was lacking, for just as I had taken off my coat, Hans arrived and said that old Billali was without and had come to take me somewhere. Well, there was nothing to do but to put it on again. Before I had finished this operation, Billali himself arrived with undignified and unusual haste. I asked him what was the matter, and he answered inconsequently that the Black One, the slayer of Rezu, was at the door with his axe. "That generally accompanies him," I replied. Then remembering the cause of Billali's alarm, I explained to him that he must not take too much notice of a few hasty words spoken by an essentially gentle natured person whose nerve had given way beneath provocation and bodily effort. The old fellow bowed in assent and stroked his beard, but I noticed that while Umslopogaas was near, he clung to me like a shadow. Perhaps he thought that nervous attacks might be recurrent like those of fever. Outside the house I found Umslopogaas leaning on his axe and looking at the sky in which the last red rays of evening lingered.
"The sun has set, Macumazahn,"
he said,
"and it is time to visit this White Queen as she bade us, and to learn whether she can indeed lead us down below where the dead are said to dwell."
So he had not forgotten, which was disconcerting. To cover up my own doubts I asked him with affected confidence and cheerfulness whether he was not afraid to risk this journey down below, that is, to the realm of death.
"Why should I fear to tread a road that awaits the feet of all of us and at the gate of which we knock day by day, especially if we chance to live by war as do you and I, Macumazahn?"
he inquired with a quiet dignity which made me feel ashamed. "Why indeed?" I answered, adding to myself, though I should much prefer any other highway. After this we started without more words, I keeping up my spirits by reflecting that the whole business was nonsense and that there could be nothing to dread. All too soon we passed the ruined archway and were admitted into Ayesha's presence in the usual fashion. As Billali, who remained outside of them, drew the curtains behind us, I observed to my astonishment that Hans had sneaked in after me and squatted down quite close to them, apparently in the hope of being overlooked. It seemed, as I gathered later, that somehow or other he had guessed or become aware of the object of our visit, and that his burning curiosity had overcome his terror of the White Witch. Or possibly he hoped to discover whether or not she were so ugly as he supposed her veil-hidden face to be. At any rate there he was, and if Ayesha noticed him, as I think she did, for I saw by the motion of her head that she was looking in his direction, she made no remark. For a while she sat still in her chair contemplating us both. Then she said, "How comes it that you are late? Those that seek their lost loves should run with eager feet, but yours have tarried." I muttered some excuse to which she did not trouble to listen, for she went on, "I think, Allan, that your sandals, which should be winged like those of the Roman Mercury, are weighted with the grey lead of fear. Well, it is not strange, since you have come to travel through the gates of death that are feared by all, even by Ayesha's self, for who knows what he may find beyond them? Ask the Axe bearer if he also is afraid." I obeyed, rendering all that she had said into the Zulu idiom as best I could.
"Say to the Queen,"
answered Umslopogaas, when he understood,
"that I fear nothing except women's tongues. I am ready to pass the gates of death and if need be to come back no more. With the white people I know it is otherwise, because of some dark teachings to which they listen, that tell of terrors to be, such as we who are black do not dread. Still, we believe that there are ghosts and that the spirits of our fathers live on, and as it chances, I would learn whether this is so, who above all things desire to meet a certain ghost, for which reason I journeyed to this far land." Say these things to the White Queen, Macumazahn."